up more than 200 points. Good time to get in Nimesh to tell us what he's picking up. Nimesh, truncated week, so happy. But what are you picking up in terms of flows and market action?
Well, flows-wise, it's going to be a muted day, right? Yeah. Because I understand a lot of domestic mutual funds are not very active. We have an off tomorrow. China is shut for this week. So even from a global perspective, we're not going to see this big global trade-off, which is going to happen. So from a flow perspective, it's quite muted. But again, it's been a range-bound day of trade. You rightly pointed out, portfolios are doing good. And that was the case yesterday as well. A vertical fall in Nifty yesterday, but the breadth was quite positive, right? Even that's been the trend today as well. I guess the sector of the day is clearly, again, metals. That's been the sector of the entire last series, and that momentum continues. And now we are seeing a bit of chase from the domestic and from larger HNIs as well into the metal names. So that's the sector which is well bid. I guess, what to watch out for. One, of course, once the China reopens next week, whether there is a global reallocation trade, that is something to watch out for. CNBC put out a note today morning saying there are few stocks in the large cap which are vulnerable to sell off if that trade has to happen, right? So that's something to track in terms of large cap. We saw yesterday was the first signs of it. 9,000 crores of selling was purely in back of risk of from India to China. So that's something to track. I guess earnings are going to be quite important, which will start maybe from next week. But I guess the other thing to track would be the geopolitical risk as to how that pans out. Despite so much of noise, the crude is now again fallen back to 70. So that's positive at the margin for India. So that is something to track. But I guess the bigger things to watch would be earnings. And if, as and when China reopens next week, whether there is a bit of a shift from India to China in terms of flows.
Okay, all right. So trade setup as well as all the cues that we need to track. But what about individual stocks, Nimesh?
Well, a lot of mid-cap stocks are buzzing in trade. The first name is Sadbhav Engineering. We don't talk too much about the stock. It's been kind of a forgotten stock. Suddenly, we've seen a bit of up move in that name. Again, locked at 5% upper circuit. The volumes are on the higher side. I understand a domestic mutual fund, the only institutional holder that's been a seller of late, but some informed investors are buying as well into Sadbhav Engineering. The second name is SRF. Surprisingly, despite some long-only funds buying into the stock, this is the only name which is relatively underperformed in the chemical basket today. Davin is buzzing in trade, so is Tata Chemicals. A lot of chemical stocks are buzzing, but SRF is under pressure. But there are buy flows and some long-only funds are active buyers there. The third name is SpiceJet. For second day running, big move on that name and on large volumes as well. Couple of reasons the stock is buzzing. One, I understand there is a clean-out trade from some hedge funds who bought into the QIP, and one of the P investor who got warrants at a much lower price. Even that particular entity seems to have sold out. And in the last couple of days, some large HNI investors have been active buyers and hence a big up move in that name as well. They've got the money now. Execution is going to be the key to watch as far as SpiceJet is concerned. And the last is a couple of large cap names where there is delivery-based selling, Sun Pharma and TCS. TCS stands out because while the entire IT has done well today, TCS is seeing a lot of delivery-based selling, and same is the case with Sun Pharma as well.
Thank you very much for that interesting list as always. Mitesh is now back with us.